welcome back to another episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. I'm your host, Sai, and today we're here with the lovely Carylee Carrington. I love that name. How are you doing today, Miss Carylee?
I'm doing great right now. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. When I saw this book, I was like, oh my God, we have to highlight this. This is, a book that it's like a classic. It looks like a classic. I always like to start with the cover of the book.
Yes.
What was your inspiration for the cover of the book?
Well, my inspiration for the cover of the book was really just getting the gist of family and Thanksgiving and really showing how our family dynamic really is. You have the young son who is wanting to get into everything, just seeing how things are. You have grandma and grandpa, you have mother and father, and you have the teenager on the cell phone.
Yeah,
That is life. That
yeah,
is life.
very accurate. And the name of the book, you name it, Graham made it. A
Yes.
Thanksgiving story of family and love. And what was the inspiration behind the name?
Well, the inspiration behind the name was really the inspiration behind the book.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have heard of the You Name It challenge with the
Yeah.
yes with
Yeah.
I don't know if her title is Reverend Doctor Pastor Shirley Caesar, but
Yeah.
yes, with got that inspiration from Shirley Caesar. And I grew up listening to Shirley Caesar. My mom grew up, my mom was singing Shirley Caesar when I was growing up.
Mhm.
So when I saw the You Name It challenge and heard, the beans, greens, potatoes, I was just like, that needs a story around it. And because that is how Thanksgiving has been for a lot of families. And I know, we may have like everybody says, oh, you have um the Christmas songs and the other holidays, but Thanksgiving is almost that forgotten holiday. And I don't know why it's that forgotten holiday, because that is the one time, that all family really comes together. That is the family holiday. And yes, Christmas is a family holiday as well, but usually Christmas is your immediate family because you're celebrating Christmas morning. And, some people may travel to be with family, but I think definitely Thanksgiving is that family holiday that we all come
Yeah.
together. And especially, yeah, you're getting grandma's cooking. You're getting that good home cooking on that day. You can be sure about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Thanksgiving, it is a very underrated holiday. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of shine as
Yeah.
compared to Christmas. So I think this book is going to become a staple in households. And when you talk
That's what
about,
we want.
yeah, I really do. I can't wait to get it. I have two little toddlers, and we do bedtime stories and stuff like that. And I saw you were talking about how the narrative matters.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we do that, I'm sorry, let's go ahead, scale back a little bit and get to know a little bit about you. So introduce yourself. Tell us, how did you get started as a writer, and a little bit of just your background.
Yes, well, I'm Carylee Carrington. I am, I would say now an eight, seven going into 8 year author. I have been writing basically all my life. I remember the first time, I really started writing poetry was at the age of 9 years old. And my mom always wanted me to pursue that. And I have written and published poetry. I have written and produced plays.
Okay.
Um, back in the day. um, but before he got to be, this billionaire, in my church, I was called the female Tyler Perry.
Okay.
Because one, I used to, write plays and skits for my church and would produce and direct them. And also we share the same birthday. So
that's a sign. That is a sign. And people who watch here know that I love Tyler Perry. So I say it all the time. So we're good. Yeah. And it's so when I do these interviews and I hear, you guys telling me about your background, and it's like, oh my God, I guess all writers, because I too wrote a play for my church. I remember at a summer camp, and even further, I'm from New Orleans, like Tyler Perry. Do we see how small this world is?
Oh wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you were writing as a child now, and you've done plays. This book specifically, can you go into tell us about the You Name It, Grand Made It book specifically? What is this book about?
Yeah. So the You Name It, Grand Made It book, like I said, I decided that Shirley Caesar meme needed a story around it. So it starts off with and it's basically narrated by a young boy, Trey. And this is his first time really, I guess, acknowledging that he's going to grandma's or his great grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. And it starts with him. He's getting up Thanksgiving morning. His parents are there, scurrying about, getting everyone ready. And we've already started the theme off, with the family coming together and eating. And, it's not just a regular, it's not just cereal or it's a big spread for Thanksgiving breakfast. And that's where we kind of introduce what is kind of known in most Black homes and Black kitchens. You don't just have food, you have soul food, and all of that food is made with love. So, like, there's one part of it where they're asking about their father's pancakes, and they're like, why does it taste so good? And they said that, oh, there's an extra dash of love. And it's like, love? I don't see that in the cupboard. What are you talking about? So then, he goes on to grandma's house, and that soul and that love that is poured into the food, that comes up again. And so that is the underlying theme of the entire book. And also, it's really just tapping on the reason why we come together for Thanksgiving. We're not, I don't know, in the I've never seen in a Black household where we're just like, okay, all right, the Pilgrims and Indians and we get that from school, but when we come together, and like I said, it's not just, the book is not, it may be centered around Thanksgiving, but it's not just Thanksgiving, because we know when we come together, and when grandma and mama and big mama and whoever is throwing down in the kitchen, we are all going to be not just fed through our stomachs, but fed through our soul.
Yes, absolutely. And it's, for me, it's nostalgic. I feel like every family has that one house that they usually go to. Like, okay, this is the gathering spot where we're all going to go. And just looking at that cover, and when I was reading it, I'm like, okay, I have to get this for my kids, because that for me was such an amazing time growing up and being a child, helping washing, the food before we're cooking it, and just that togetherness. And like you said, I'm a teacher as well. So I know the importance of exposing kids to these types of stories so that they can see themselves in the pages. and it can set that foundation for them to say, oh, okay, this is what this is like. They're making connections. So I applaud you and thank you for making this book, because I feel like every household needs it. And not only just for Black kids. I think it's important just as a human to see how other cultures live. I think that's important understanding as well, and getting along together, because if we're only painted one way, in the media, then that's what they're gonna see. So I love that. So when you wrote this book, do you feel like there was maybe a challenging part of this book specifically coming together?
Well, I will say the challenging part for me was really trying to make sure that I was making those connections. I wanted to, like, and not giving too much of the book away, but there is the interaction, when Trey and his family comes to Mama Graham's house and meets the rest of the family. And I wanted to really paint that picture. I wanted people to smell the food cooking, to see the interactions between the aunts and uncles and cousins, and just really be wrapped in that warmth. So it was kind of challenging because, of course, you have to paint that picture with words. And also, I wanted to make sure that I was giving somewhat of, well, no, not even somewhat, an accurate description. And that's why I actually, I have this platform, to ensure that children are getting books about cultures that are written by people from those cultures. I want to make sure that things are being written authentically, because someone else could write the book and say, oh yeah, they came in the door and they saw people and said hi, and then they went to go and eat. No. You have to really be able to embrace the culture. And that is where I would say that the African American culture, I think that's the only part where you can say, okay, well, yeah, I can see this happen. We may do it a different way, but this was definitely, I would say, authentically the African American or Black culture, because that's what I've lived.
Yeah. And that is important.
Yeah.
A couple of things I know you said when you talked about accurately getting that sensory description of making sure that it really painted that picture. You can close your eyes, see the table, smell the food, all that stuff. And that, they say writing is easy for everyone except for writers. I really believe that quote, because even though, especially with children's books. So
yeah,
a lot of people think like, oh, writing a big novel, not comparing, but when you write a children's book, and I tell my students this as well, sometimes it's very hard to write effectively and accurately with shorter sentences, with less. So that actually takes even more thought so that you're being very articulate and actually getting the point across that you're trying to get to with less words. Because, so that can be a challenge. So tell us about your publishing experience with this book.
Yes. So I am a self-published author, and I started out with self-publishing because the book that I wrote, Everyone Just Like Me, the book that's right here, I did not, like, that was my baby, and I did not want to just put it over to a publishing house and possibly have it sitting on a shelf for years. And my mother, who was the one that has been pushing me all along to get into publishing, she suggested self-publishing. I didn't know what that was, so I had to Google it, and I Googled some self-publishing arms of some big publishing houses, and I landed on one. And with this book, this was the first one that came directly from me. You did have help with Everyone Just Like Me, Pretty Hair, and Maya Sings Country from the self-publishing arm of that publishing house. But this one was my You Name It, Graham Made It was the first one that, I wrote my manuscript. I found the illustrator,
Mhm.
and I gave everything to them. And even from, you know, the text, the formatting, all of that, I really did all of that myself. And then being able to then go ahead and work with distributors to be able to get my book out, it took a little bit longer because, of course, I was now striking out on my very own and doing this. And it was definitely a labor of love, just like the book, talks about being able to get that love in the food. It was the love in this book because I really wanted and needed this story to be told and not watered down. And there are some things that are within the book, within the story, that you may not be able to get from a book that is um published by a large publishing house. Like the fact that they prayed over their food and they prayed together, that is something that is important for me because, of course, I was raised in the church.
Mhm.
And um and that is something that we do in the culture.
Yeah.
So, I did not want it to be watered down. I did not want that to be taken out. It's not to be offensive to anyone, but it's to embrace who we are.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that, and it's important. And I'm happy to see so many people actually taking the journey. And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, writing the book is one thing, but publishing, that's a totally separate beast. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. You're doing an absolutely amazing job. Tell
Thank
us
you.
a little bit about the 5,000 journey. Are you still doing that? What is
Yes. Well, we actually end tonight.
okay?
Uh, yes, we were challenged by a major retailer to be able to, I wrote to them and I gave them the idea of centering a Thanksgiving commercial around You Name It, Graham Made It. And they came
Mm,
back to me and said, okay, well, we want to see how you're going to be doing, how you're able to do in the marketplace. So can you sell 5,000 books in 1 week, which is New York Times bestseller standards? And I said, okay, all right. And I said, yeah, I think we can do it. I called up folks that I knew that had, a platform. And of course, I said, with the connections that I have, we should be able to do that. We're not there yet. And we do have just a few more hours to go, about 9 hours to go. And I am hoping that we do get there. And I hope that we really make waves for especially having self-published authors be able to make it to the New York Times bestseller, because a lot of people may not know that that is a criteria for the New York Times bestseller, that you come from one of the major publishing houses. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm from this little publisher and yeah, I'm going to sell 5,000 books. You may sell 5,000 books, but um, you may not be recognized.
yeah.
So that is something that we are fighting for with this challenge. And I believe that we will continue to go on and um and fight for that. That may become another significant part of my platform, more than just diversity in children's literature, but also making sure that our self-published authors get the recognition that they deserve.
I think that's amazing. And I think the power of social media, I think social media is amazing. It's a double-edged sword, but it is amazing.
Yes.
um, and I know I started a brand like maybe 10 years ago, and I put it out on Instagram. A lot of my leads came from Instagram, just pushing, pushing. So we're definitely going to share reposts to try to get those numbers up there so you guys can reach your goal. I think knowing how long between the time that you reached out to them, did it start like automatically in a week that they wanted you to have that?
No, we actually started about a week after.
Okay.
So, there was getting things together, getting a landing page so that we would be able to track, because, yes, my You Name It, Graham Made It is available on Amazon. It is available through other distributors, but we can't collect that data.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't collect the data from everywhere, but through our landing page, we are able to track the data. And we even offered free shipping so that everyone would be able to get free shipping, and have that as an incentive to be able to go out, go and purchase that book. We've had bulk orders. We've had, people that say, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to grab 10 books and I'm going to distribute to my children's teachers or schools or friends, so that we can really get this word out and get the book out. And I'm sure that, we will continue to make waves even after this challenge is done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an amazing book. I think it is something that, like I said, I keep saying it because I believe in literature. Like I was reading to my babies when they were still in my belly. Everyone needs this book in your home, guys. Thanksgiving is coming up. It's like, we got a couple months, but to have it there, and then not only just having it for Thanksgiving, but reading it up until Thanksgiving, so that when we get to Thanksgiving, the kids will understand and have a good understanding. I think that's important too. So what advice would you have for someone who, because I know a lot of people, I know a friend in my head right now, she wants to write a children's book. What advice would you give to someone who has been sitting on an idea and they just need, if you could tell them one thing or a couple of things, what would you tell them to get their book out there?
Just do it. Just do it. You have to believe in yourself. There's some things, some phrases that there are a lot of people have. They have delulu vision, yes, or crazy faith. You have to have that in yourself.
Absolutely.
When I became a children's author, it was off, just trying to help my son. And now coming with this platform, I'm just like, I was not the first one to do self-publishing. I'm not the first one to be a children's author, but I came out there, I came out with my vision, and I went full steam ahead. I bet on myself. I bet on myself, and I continue to bet on myself. And I know that betting on myself, it's going to come to fruition, because not only am I betting on myself, but I am leading a charge to be able to make change.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the differences between, okay, well, I'm just coming out here and I'm going to try to sell some books to make money. If I was trying to sell some books to make money, it would not be children's books. But I am very passionate about my platform. I'm very passionate about what I do. Not too many people are going to come and, wear a tutu everywhere and go and smile in front of a room full of kids. Kids are intimidating. And
Yes.
honestly, if I didn't have this tutu on, I think that I would probably collapse in on myself. But once I put that tutu on, once I know that I am going to possibly touch one child that may have never seen a book with characters that look like them, that fills my cup. So you need to know what is filling your cup. Coming into children's publishing is not for the faint at heart.
Yeah.
But if you know that you have a purpose, you have a passion, go for it and let it glow.
Beautiful message. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's not about the money, guys. I mean, the money's nice, but it's not about the money. You have to have a drive and a force to keep you pushing. You have to have a purpose, a message, and I think that is what really sets apart people in the publishing world, whether you're self-published or not.
Yeah.
I feel like next we're at our, let's see here, trivia time. So we do have a little bit of a trivia, okay? And it's very, this is author edition, Would You Rather, okay? Fiction style, okay? So we're gonna have you pick a number from 1 to 4.
Oh, 3.
3. That is like, people love 3. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so, all right, it says, would you rather be stuck in a fictional world of your choosing for a year, or have your favorite fictional character live in your house for 1 week?
Ooh. I would, ooh, I would probably be in a fictional world for a year. Yeah.
Okay. What, I mean, do you have a specific story in mind?
I don't really, but I would probably, okay. I have to go with one of my favorite books of all time. And it's kind of iffy because it's the era that it's in, and like the fashion and everything.
Yeah.
My favorite book is The Great Gatsby.
Okay.
Yes.
That would be very interesting. That really
Yes.
would.
I don't know if I would be able to be a Black person in that, at that time. But you know what? We did have some trailblazers in that time, and some especially even some great women like Madam C.J. Walker was around that time as well. So yeah.
I love that. I love that answer. Okay. Well, we are at our closing slide. So now you have a lot, you're very inspirational. Let me just go ahead and say that. But what is next for you, Miss Carrington?
Ooh, what is next for me? I do have another book that is going to be coming out, that is featured around the Tutu Queen. So that is one of the things that's next for me. I will say, this challenge has really kind of not taken me off the course that I am on, but kind of expanded the road a little bit. Instead of maybe 2 lanes, this may be a 3-lane. This may be a 3-lane highway right now, and I think there's still so much to champion for. I was gonna say fight for, but you know what? There's still so much to champion for. We need to kind of, even like I was talking to someone today, and she talked about changing the words that we use. So there's so much to champion for, even with diversity in children's literature, and getting self-published indie authors the recognition that they deserve. And one of my passions has been even though us self-published and indie authors are off doing our own thing, there is a way for us to come together and grow. And that is one thing that I have been trying to do. And that is still a passion that I am driving toward. So the world is open, but I still will be championing the causes that I've been advocating for.
Yeah, well, we are so proud of you here at Jazz and Prose.
Thank you.
You're doing it. You took the leap of faith. You're doing it. You're doing amazing. We're gonna speak that 5K plus more into
Yes.
existence. Amen.
Yes.
Hallelujah. Okay, guys, you name it. Graham Made It is out now on Amazon, right? It's on Amazon, or
It is on Amazon, but definitely follow me on social media. Click the links in my bio to be able to see how you can get your hands on it. If you get it from Amazon, it will not be signed, but if you get it from my website and this challenge, I'm signing all 5,000.
Well, guys, click her link. Click her link. We'll have her link as well in the description. Go and get that. Miss Carylee Carrington, I love your name, by the way. You are welcome back anytime, and we wish you all the best of luck. And yeah, so guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Jasmine Prose author interviews, and we'll see you next time. Bye.